Her tribe cast her out for her unique fur, but I cherished fox women's soft, sensual curves all night long. The abandoned beauty. The mountain wind carried frost and loneliness through the whispering pines as Rowan Cross gathered firewood near his isolated workshop. 3 years of self-imposed exile had taught him to appreciate solitude, though lately the silence pressed against his chest like a physical weight. His sculptures, ambitious, unfinished, mocked him from within the timber cabin, evidence of inspiration long dried up. The whimper changed everything. Rowan froze, wood tumbling from his arms. There, beneath the ancient pine marking the boundary of his property, lay a figure that made his breath catch. She was unlike anything he'd encountered. A woman, yet not quite human. Her form was undeniably feminine, with curves that would haunt any artist's dreams, but covered in fur that shimmered with impossible colors. Deep crimson streaked with veins of molten gold, like autumn leaves catching fire. She lifted her head, revealing eyes like polished amber, wide with fear and exhaustion. Her full lips trembled as she tried to speak, managing only a rasp. Rowan noticed her tears frozen on her cheeks, the way she hugged herself against the cold, trying to cover her exposed body with 7 magnificent tails that nevertheless couldn't shield her from the bitter wind. "Please," he said softly, approaching with palms raised. "I won't hurt you." Her ears, delicate, pointed, furred, flicked toward him, reading his sincerity. After a heartbeat's hesitation, she nodded slightly. Rowan removed his heavy coat, draping it around her trembling shoulders. The touch of her fur against his fingertips sent an unexpected shock through him, softer than anything he'd touched, electric somehow. She looked up at him with such raw vulnerability that something inside his chest cracked open. "My workshop is warm," he offered, gesturing toward the cabin. "Food, fire, you're safe with me." She studied his weathered face, his calloused hands, his storm-gray eyes that held no cruelty. Finally, she whispered, "Silvara." "Rowan," he replied, offering his hand. When her fingers, tipped with subtle claws, slipped into his palm, both felt the first spark of something neither understood yet, but both desperately needed. The sanctuary of touch. Inside the workshop, warmth enveloped them like an embrace. Rowan guided Silvara to the stone hearth where flames danced shadows across unfinished sculptures. He prepared hot tea with honey, noticing how her hands trembled as she accepted the cup, how her eyes darted around the space, filled with clay figures and marble blocks. "You're an artist," she murmured, her voice like wind through leaves. "I try to be." Rowan settled across from her, keeping respectful distance. "Though lately nothing feels right. Everything I create seems empty." Silvara sipped the tea, and color slowly returned to her cheeks beneath the crimson gold fur. "I know emptiness," she whispered. "My clan, the Emberfang, they said my colors were wrong, that I disrupted the natural order with these markings." Her fingers traced the gold veins running through her fur. "They performed the ritual of severance 3 days ago, cast me beyond the territorial stones." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Because you're different?" "Because I'm too different." A tear escaped, trailing down her muzzle. "They said I would corrupt the purity of our bloodline, that my offspring would bear the same curse." "Curse?" Rowan moved closer, unable to stop himself. "Silvara, you're extraordinary. Those colors, I've never seen anything so beautiful." She looked up, vulnerability and hope warring in her amber eyes. "You don't find me monstrous?" "Monstrous?" He laughed softly, reaching out to gently brush away her tear. The contact made them both inhale sharply. His thumb lingered on her cheek, and Silvara leaned into the touch like a flower seeking sun. Rowan's artist instincts awakened with sudden, fierce intensity. "May I sketch you? I need to capture this. You." She nodded, and he retrieved his charcoal and paper. But as he drew, The lines became less important than watching her. The way firelight played across her unique fur, how her tails curled around her body protectively, the elegant curve of her neck. "Rowan," she said suddenly, "why are you alone here?" He paused, meeting her gaze. "Because people expect things. They want conventional beauty, safe art. I came here seeking something real, something that would make me feel alive again. Have you found it?" He set down the charcoal and moved to sit beside her. "I think I just did." Silvara's breath quickened as his hand found hers again. This time, neither pulled away. His fingers traced up her arm, following the gold patterns through crimson fur with reverent slowness. She shivered, not from cold. "Is this all right?" he whispered. "Yes," she breathed. No one has ever touched me like this, like I'm precious." "You are precious." Silvara's other hand cupped her face, thumb stroking her cheek. "Every mark, every color, perfect." Silvara turned her face into his palm, then looked up at him with eyes gone dark with need. When she leaned forward, he met her halfway. Their first kiss was tentative, exploring, her lips softer than he imagined possible, tasting of honey and something wild. She made a small sound in her throat, and the kiss deepened. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close as her tails enveloped them both. The workshop faded away until only warmth and want remained. The night of acceptance. The kiss broke slowly, both breathing hard. Silvara's pupils were dilated, her chest rising and falling rapidly beneath the magnificent fur. Rowan's restraint hung by a thread as she looked at him with naked desire, no longer the frightened exile, but a woman awakening to her own power. "I want this," she whispered against his lips. "I want you to see all of me, touch all of me." Rowan groaned softly, his forehead resting against hers. "Are you certain? Silvara, you've been through trauma." She silenced him with another kiss, deeper this time, her tongue tentatively exploring. When she pulled back, her voice was steady. "For the first time in my life, I'm choosing something for myself. I choose you. I choose this." That was all the permission he needed. Rowan stood, lifting her easily in his arms. She gasped in surprise, her tails wrapping instinctively around him as he carried her to the sleeping loft, where his bed lay covered in soft furs and woven blankets. He laid her down gently, firelight from below casting a golden glow across her extraordinary form. "You're shaking," she noticed, reaching up to touch his face. "Because you're so beautiful, it terrifies me," he admitted, kneeling beside the bed. His hands began at her ankles, sliding up slowly, reverently. The texture of her fur against his palms was intoxicating, impossibly soft, warm, alive with energy. He traced the patterns up her calves, her thighs, watching her eyes flutter closed in pleasure. "Rowan," she moaned, as his lips followed the path his hands had made, kissing the golden streaks that webbed through crimson. He worshipped her curves, the generous swell of her hips, the dip of her waist. When his mouth found the sensitive fur of her inner thigh, she arched off the bed. "Please," she gasped, her fingers threading through his hair. He moved higher, tasting her, and she cried out, a sound of pure ecstasy that echoed through the workshop. Her tails thrashed against the blankets as he devoted himself to her pleasure, learning what made her gasp, what made her whimper his name. When she trembled on the edge, he finally moved up her body, shedding his clothes as she watched with hungry eyes. Her hands explored his chest, the muscles earned from years of working stone and wood, scars from old mistakes with chisels and saws. "Now you," she whispered, pushing him onto his back. Her turn to explore, to taste, her tongue and lips discovering every inch of him until he groaned her name like a prayer. They came together finally, Silvara guiding him inside her with a gasp that became a moan of satisfaction. Rowan held still, letting her adjust, their eyes locked in an intimate connection that went beyond physical. Then she moved, and he followed her rhythm. Slow at first, savoring every sensation, the silk of her fur against his skin, the heat of her around him, the way her face transformed with pleasure. But need built quickly, and soon they were moving together with urgent intensity. The dawn of belonging. Silvara cried out as waves of pleasure crashed through her, her body arching beautifully as Rowan drove deeper, his own control shattering. They climaxed together, her name on his lips, his on hers, their bodies locked in perfect unity as ecstasy overwhelmed them both. Afterward, they lay tangled together, hearts pounding in synchrony. Rowan's fingers traced lazy patterns through her fur, while her tails cocooned them in warmth. The fire below had burned low, but neither felt cold. They were generating their own heat, their own light. "I never knew it could be like that," Silvara whispered, her head on his chest. "So complete, like two halves finally whole." Rowan kissed her forehead, breathing in her scent, wild forests and something uniquely her. "Neither did I. I've had lovers before, but this, you're different. Special." She tilted her head up, amber eyes glowing softly in the dimness. "Make love to me again," she requested, already feeling desire rekindling. "I want to memorize every touch, every moment." And he did. Slower this time, exploring with patient thoroughness. He learned that the base of her tails was exquisitely sensitive, that kissing the fur along her collarbone made her purr, an actual purr that vibrated through her chest. She discovered he loved when she dragged her claws lightly down his back, that whispering in his ear made him groan with need. They made love 3 more times before dawn, each encounter revealing new depths of pleasure and connection. Between sessions, they talked about his failed relationships with women who wanted to change him, about her lonely childhood, always feeling wrong in her own fur. They laughed, they confessed fears, they built intimacy that transcended the physical. When morning light finally crept through the windows, painting them in shades of rose and gold, Rowan propped himself on one elbow to study her. Silvara stretched languorously, unself-conscious in her nudity, her fur slightly mussed from their activities. "Stay with me," he said suddenly. "Not just today, always. Be my partner, my muse, my love." Silvara's eyes widened, then filled with tears, happy ones this time. "You truly want me, even knowing my clan rejected me?" "Especially knowing that." Rowan cupped her face tenderly. "Their rejection brought you to me. I'm selfish enough to be grateful for it." She kissed him deeply, pouring acceptance and joy into the gesture. When they broke apart, she smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. "Then yes, I'll stay." They rose eventually, Rowan preparing breakfast while Silvara explored his sculptures with new appreciation. She paused before a half-finished piece, a figure reaching upward, yearning for something just out of grasp. "This one," she said, "it feels like us, like what we were before last night." Rowan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Then I know how to finish it now. 2 figures reaching for each other, finding each other." She leaned back against him, contentment settling into her bones. For the first time since her exile, Silvara felt home wasn't a place, it was a person. They spent the day alternating between passion and creation. Rowan sketched her endlessly, capturing her beauty in charcoal and graphite. Then he'd set aside the arch to capture her in his arms instead, their lovemaking growing more playful, more adventurous. She posed provocatively, he chased her laughing through the workshop. They christened his sculpting table with enthusiastic creativity. By evening, both were deliciously exhausted and completely satisfied, sharing a meal by the fire with her curled against him, his fingers absently stroking her fur. "I never want this to end," Silvara murmured. "Then it won't," Rowan promised, kissing her temple. "This is just our beginning." The forever choice. 5 days of blissful isolation passed before reality intruded. Rowan was outside chopping wood, while Silvara worked inside on her own artistic attempts. She'd discovered a talent for pottery when he heard voices approaching through the forest. 3 figures emerged from the tree line, and Rowan's hand tightened on his axe. They were like Silvara, but different. Wolf people with uniform gray and white fur, their expressions hard and judgmental. The leader, a tall male with silver streaking his muzzle, stopped at the property boundary. "We've come for Silvara," he announced. "The Emberfang clan requests her return." Silvara appeared in the doorway, and Rowan saw her stiffen. "Requests, Elder Thornin, or demands?" "The council has reconsidered," Thornin said, though his tone suggested reluctance. "Your absence has been noticed. We're prepared to overlook your aberration if you return and submit to the purification rituals." "Purification?" Silvara's voice shook with anger. "You mean erasing who I am, dyeing my fur to match yours?" A female elder stepped forward. "It's for your own good, child, so you can have a proper place among your people." "My people cast me out to die," Silvara shot back, moving to stand beside Rowan. His hand found hers, squeezing supportively. "You deemed me cursed and unworthy. What changed?" Thornin's jaw tightened. "Pride has its limits. We miscalculated. But you belong with your own kind, not with this human." Rowan felt Silvara tremble, not with fear, but fury. She stepped forward, head high, her crimson and gold fur blazing in the afternoon sun like living flame. "My own kind rejected me for being different. This human cherishes me for exactly who I am. He sees beauty where you saw corruption, uniqueness where you saw defect. I've spent 5 days experiencing more love and acceptance than I received in 20 years among the Emberfang." "Silvara," Thornin began, but she cut him off. "I'm not returning, ever. You made your choice when you performed the severance ritual. Now I'm making mine." She turned to Rowan, taking his face in her hands. "I choose a life where I'm celebrated, not tolerated, where passion and art and authentic love matter more than conformity. I choose him. I choose us." Rowan kissed her fiercely, claiming her before her former clan, making their bond unmistakable. When they broke apart, he addressed the elders. "She's given you her answer. Respect it, or leave my land." The elders exchanged looks, their pride clearly wounded. Finally, Thornin nodded stiffly. "Then you are truly severed from us, Silvara of no clan. May you find what you seek in exile." "I already have," she replied, taking Rowan's hand. "I found home." They watched the elders retreat into the forest, and only when the sounds faded completely did Silvara release the breath she'd been holding. Rowan turned her to face him, seeing tears on her cheeks, happy tears this time. "No regrets?" he asked gently. "Only that I didn't find you sooner." She kissed him softly. "Take me inside, Rowan. Remind me why I made the right choice." He lifted her into his arms, carrying her across the threshold of their home. "With pleasure, my love, with absolute pleasure." Their lovemaking that afternoon was different, tinged with triumph and finality, a celebration of choosing each other over obligation. As Silvara moved above him, her crimson and gold fur glowing in the sunlight streaming through the windows, Rowan knew his art would never lack inspiration again. She was his muse, his passion, his forever. Later, as sunset painted the sky in colors that matched her fur, they lay entwined and complete. Silvara traced patterns on his chest, her voice thoughtful. "My exile became my liberation," she mused. "Being cast out led me to being cherished." "And my isolation became connection," Rowan added, kissing her hair. "We found each other by being true to ourselves." "Then let's never stop being true, to ourselves and to this love." "Never," he promised, and sealed it with a kiss that held all their tomorrows.
Lessons from the Exile's Canvas. True love celebrates your uniqueness rather than demanding you change. Authentic acceptance means cherishing every part of someone, especially the qualities others might reject. Sometimes being cast out from where you don't belong leads you exactly where you need to be, to people who will treasure your true self. The deepest intimacy comes not from physical passion alone, but from the courage to be vulnerable and the joy of being wholly accepted. Home is not found in the approval of those who reject you, but in the arms of someone who sees your supposed flaws as the most beautiful parts of who you are.